So in this lecture, we'll see the crystal geometry. Now, crystal geometry we'll see in three fundamental topics. The first one is the space lattice. Then we'll see what is crystal structure, and in the next lecture we'll see the crystal direction and planes. In this particular lecture, I'm not going to cover this part, but the whole crystal geometry also contain this particular topic, crystal directions and planes. Now let us try to understand what we mean by the space lattice. Now, an infinite array of points in 3D space such that every point has identical surroundings is what is the definition of space lattice. Now let us try to understand few words in this definition. Now the first word is it should be an infinite array of points. But you know that practically it is possible to show you the infinite array of points. That is why in the figure, either in the left side or in the right side, you can see we have tried to show the space lattice, and definitely this is a finite representation of the actual infinite array of points. So the definition of space lattice, it's an infinite array of points. Okay. So here in the left hand side you can see it's a 2D space lattice, and in the right hand side you can see it's a 3D space lattice. Okay. So in general, you know, the material is three-dimensional in nature. So space lattice related to that material, if we want to define, then definitely it has to be a 3D infinite array in a 3D space. So just for understanding, I have shown you the 2D space lattice. It is array of points. That means here you can see in the right hand side the picture, the 3D array of points, where you can see that some points, here you can see these are points, but do not confuse that these are not any atoms. These are only points. For clarity, I have shown certain dimension here, but these are basically the points. Points, you know, just the location without any dimension. Okay. So this is what is the space lattice, the infinite array of points in 3D space. Up to this much I think it's clear. Now such that every point has identical surroundings. This is very, very important. Identical surroundings means, if you consider, come to this 2D space lattice example, you just take this point. Now if you go along this direction by a certain distance, you will get another point. If you go in this direction up to a certain distance, you may get another point. Now you take another point. Let us consider we are taking this point. Now from this point, if you go exactly in a similar direction that we have done here for the first, if you go by the same distance, you will get another point. And similarly here we have gone by a distance and we got another point. Similarly from this point also, if you go in that direction, you will get another point. This is what I mean by the identical surrounding. Okay, that means everything around this point is exactly similar, everything around this point. That means if the arrays, if the points are arranged in such a way that every point having identical surrounding, then it is called a 3D space lattice. Okay, I think this is what is the basic idea, identical surrounding. This is a very, very important idea. That means from a point, if you go through a translation in a particular direction, you take any other point and go by the same distance in the same direction, you will get another point. This is what is the meaning of identical surrounding, every point having identical surroundings. Okay. Similarly, in case of 3D space lattice also, this thing is true. So in this way, in this fashion, if you arrange these points in infinite infinite number of points in 3D space, then that is called a space lattice. We are not arranging any atoms, we are not arranging any physical bodies, each are only the points, the locations. If we arrange in that way, that is what is called a space lattice. Okay. Here is an example of 2D space lattice has been shown. See, those may not be exactly what we have seen in the last 2D space lattice, but here also if you observe that every point having identical surroundings, definitely except these points do not have identical surroundings. Why? Because this is actually an infinite array, since this is like an edge where basically we have considered actually a finite representation. That is why maybe if you consider this point and if you go in this direction by this distance, you are getting another point, but from here if you go in that direction you do not get anything, because here is a finite representation, it is not actually infinite. That is why this is not matching, but the definition is infinite number of points, then the definition will definitely match. So here basically this definition is not matching at the finite ends, that is quite clear, but definitely it is infinite space lattice, infinite number of points are actually there, and that is why it should match the definition for every point. Now you see, if you want to represent a particular translation in this space lattice, then to represent that translation you need two translational vectors. By these two translational vectors it is possible to represent any translation from one point to another point. So here one example has been shown. You can see that let us take this translational vector v and this translational vector c. Now see, with the help of these two vectors you can make any translation. Suppose you want to make a translation from here to here. Suppose you want to make this translation. You see, you can write this translation as simply b plus c, because this translation is nothing but actually this translation, and that is nothing but the vector sum of b and c. Okay, so in this way these are called the fundamental translational vectors by which actually we can represent this two-dimensional space lattice. So in case of a two-dimensional space lattice, you need two vectors, definitely two vectors. But what should be the restriction in those vectors? The vectors should not be collinear, non-collinear vectors. You have to take non-collinear vector. There should be some angle between them. They should not be collinear. They should not be collinear. This is very important. So two vectors which are non-collinear. That is what is the important thing that you have to remember. So by two non-collinear vectors, it is possible to represent this finite space lattice. Any translation we can represent. These vectors are called fundamental translational vectors. These are called translational vectors. These are called fundamental translational vectors. Now these fundamental translational vectors are basically a representation of the whole 2D space lattice. That means if you just think this particular representation, this is a finite representation, and this finite representation actually is done with the help of these fundamental translational vectors. And this particular representation, if you repeat this particular parallelogram, then you can generate the whole space lattice. You see, this whole space lattice is basically the repetition of this particular cell, right? So this particular cell which is formed by the fundamental translational vectors are called unit cell. So unit cell, what is unit cell? So unit cell is basically the finite representation of the infinite space lattice. It's a finite representation of the infinite space lattice. That means the repetition of that particular unit cell will actually form the infinite space lattice. We cannot actually deal with the infinite space lattice since there is a periodic repetition, since there is identical surrounding of each point. That means a periodic repetition is present of that point. So it is better you define the unit cell, and repetition of the unit cell will be there. So what we do, we basically concentrate on the unit cell and make all the calculations, all the conclusion about the structure on the unit cell only, because the whole material is basically the repetition of that kind of a lattice. So whole lattice is basically repetition of the unit cell. So unit cell is kind of a finite representation of the lattice. And how unit cell has been formed? That is formed with the help of fundamental translational vectors. Generally, fundamental translational vectors are taken that one vector from one point to the another next point, one point to the next point. But there may be other possibilities of taking the fundamental translational vectors. You can also take, I am showing by green or say blue, you can also take, this is say B dashed, and say this is C. So this B dashed and C, these vectors we can also take as fundamental translational vectors, because they are also satisfying the basic condition for the translational vectors, that they are non-collinear, and with the help of these two we can also generate any translation, no problem. As long as these two vectors are non-collinear, those can be taken as the basis vector, and with the help of that we can generate anything. So that in which direction you are considering the vectors, that is your choice. Okay, that is not unique. It is not that you have to take this one and this one, B and C. This is not the only. There are multiple options. You can take these two also. So in that case, definitely you can consider this will be your unit cell. So repetition of this cell, you can also think that the representation of finite representation of the whole infinite array. So it is not an unique thing, but the basic definition is with the help of fundamental translational vectors we create the cell, and cell is the finite representation of the infinite array of points, or in 3D or 2D space lattice in this example. Similarly here, the things can be extended in case of a 3D exactly in a similar way. So only thing is that you just tell me, okay, in case of a 3D space lattice, how many fundamental translational vectors are required. So in case of a 3D space lattice, to represent finitely how many, or any translation within that space lattice, how many fundamental translational vectors required? Definitely 3 fundamental translational vectors are required, and 3 translational vectors are required. And what are the restrictions here? The restriction here are definitely no 2 of them should be collinear, and not only that, 3 of them should not be coplanar. Okay, so 3 of them or all of them should not be coplanar, should not be coplanar. Okay, so 3 of them should not be coplanar. This is what is the restriction that you have to remember when you are forming fundamental translational vectors. So in this example, you can see this is 3D space lattice, and you can see with the help of fundamental translational vectors, basically if you create the unit cell, and that unit cell is basically the repetition of that unit cell will create the 3D space lattice. So here you can see I am showing by red. this is one fundamental translational vector, say A. This is another one, say B, and this is another one, say C. So A, B, C are three fundamental translational vectors, and with the help of these three fundamental translational vectors you can create this unit cell that you can see here, and repetition of this unit cell actually represents the infinite space lattice, 3D space lattice. Okay, so I think this part is clear, that what we mean by fundamental translational vectors. Practically everything is three-dimensional in nature, so we have to go with this 3D space lattice, or the fundamental translational vectors, actually three fundamental translational vectors, such that they are non-coplanar. That is very important. Now few important definitions which are very important. So first one is fundamental translational vectors. So already we have defined what we mean by fundamental translational vectors. Here in this example you can see the fundamental translational vectors are shown by A, B and C. So A, B and C are fundamental translational vectors, so that you can see. Okay, next, remember the angle between these fundamental translational vectors not necessarily 90 degree, because you have seen just now that this can be the 3D space lattice, so definitely they may have angle other than 90 degree. So there is a naming convention, you just try to remember A, B, C, these are basically the fundamental translational vectors, and the angle, you know that the angles are alpha, beta, gamma, and the convention is this: angle between A and B, as if A corresponding to alpha, B corresponding to beta and C corresponding to gamma. If you think in that way, so angle between A and B will be gamma. So angle between A and B will be gamma, so other than alpha and beta. Angle between B and C will be what then? B and C, so that will be alpha. And angle between A and C will be what? That means that will be beta. So angle between A and C will be beta. So this is what is the convention, that in that way you try to remember, and always try to maintain this alpha, beta, gamma order. This is very important. You because these are very standard notations, A, B, C. It is not X, Y, Z. Never people write that it is X, Y, Z, because X, Y, Z is something which is very commonly written in case of Cartesian coordinate system, and Cartesian coordinate system is a system where the angle between X, Y and Z axis are mutually perpendicular. But here in case of crystals they are not necessarily 90 degree. Okay, that is why the convention is that instead of X, Y, Z it is always written A, B, C. Okay, so try to follow this particular convention, and this is widely used all over the world, though there are certain books I have seen in Indian author they have used X, Y, Z, but you should avoid these things. These are very standard notations. Okay, and again similarly this alpha, beta, gamma, this particular order is also very, very important. It is not that any angle between any two lines you are writing alpha or beta or gamma. Okay, so after fundamental translational vectors, and hopefully you have understand by the time what we mean by the unit cell. That unit cell is basically the cell that you are creating with the help of translational vectors, and the whole 3D space lattice can be thought of as a repetition of that unit cell. Okay, so unit cell is clear to you by the time, because it is the cell formed by the fundamental translational vectors. Now coming to this primitive unit cell, this is a very specific kind of unit cell, because there are different kinds of unit cells. In the next slide we are going to discuss about the different kinds of unit cell, but the unit cells are generally of two kinds. One is primitive and another one is centered unit cell. Okay, so remember, till now whatever we are discussing, all are points, no atoms, nothing is there. Okay, so now here when we come to the unit cell, basically we have come to the finite representation of the infinite space lattice. Now the primitive unit cells are those cells where in the cell only at the corners there are points. Only at the corners there are points. So in a primitive unit cell, you can see only at the corners there are lattice points. So lattice points are only at the corner, you can see. Then this particular unit cell is called primitive unit cell, when the lattice points are only at the corner. But there can be unit cells. You know that we can form in unit cells in a different way. Unit cell definition is not a constant. You can take fundamental translational vectors in a different way. If you find that the unit cell is such, here you can see that the points are at the corner, but along with that there is a point exactly at the body center. There is a point exactly at the body center. Okay, so this is a kind of centered unit cell. Okay, so primitive cell you have understood, only the points are there at the corners. In case of centered unit cell, other than the corners, at the corners definitely points are there, but other than the corners of the cell, there may be body centered, or there may be at the face center, or there may be at the end center points are there. Okay, so those are called the centered unit cell. So here you can see the examples has been shown. The primitive unit cell, here you can see only at the corners points are there. In a face centered unit cells can be face centered. Along with the corners, you can see at the faces there are also points. Here you can see at this face, left face, you can see this point is there. In the right face, this point is there. At the front face, maybe this point is there. In the back face, this point is there. Maybe at the bottom face, there is a point. At the top face, maybe there is point. Okay, so at the face centered, maybe points are there. So that is also under centered unit cell, and specifically this is called face centered unit cell. Body centered unit cell, already you have seen that at the corners there are points. Along with that, at the body center, where the body diagonals meet, is the body center position, there is a point. So that unit cell is the body centered unit cell. It can be also end centered. End centered means all the faces may not have the points, but only at the opposite ends. Only at the opposite ends you can see face centered, opposite face centered, they have points. So at the corners definitely points are there. Along with that, only one pair of opposite faces having point. So only one pair. So this is called end centered. Okay. So end centered also given name like end centered A, end centered B, end centered C, like that. So A, B, C are basically depending upon the direction. As you know that this is fundamental translation vector A, this is B, this is C. So this particular example that has been shown is that end centered are in which direction? The end centered are in the C direction. If we join these two end centered, that is showing the C direction. So this particular unit cell is called end centered C type. Similarly, if the pair is like this, only these 2 points, in that case that will be called end centered B, and similarly front and back will called end centered A. Okay, so these are the naming conventions of the end centered. Anyway, these are the different kinds of unit cells possible. Now coming to the some calculation, very basic calculations. We want to find out the effective number of lattice points within the unit cell. Okay, So let us first consider the primitive one, the primitive unit cell, which is also called the simple. Okay, the primitive unit cell. Here this I indicates, F indicates face centered, this A, B, C you can understand indicates end centered, and this one indicates the body centered. This is basically the body centered. Okay, this I basically indicates the body centered. Okay, now you see that for the primitive, how many unit cells are effectively there within the cell, effectively how many points are there within the cell. So coming to the primitive, now you see that here there is a point. Let us consider this particular point. Now what is the fraction of this point is part of this cell? To find that, what we have to see is that how many cells, how many such cells are sharing this particular point. How many such cells are sharing this particular point? To visualize that, you just think of that this is one cell, and definitely you can draw another cell here in front of it. Definitely you can draw another cell here and another cell here. So you can see in this plane there are 4 cells, 1, 2, 3, 4. All these 4 cells are sharing this point. Now exactly in a similar way, at the top of this you can draw again 4 cells. Again in exactly in a similar way, at the top of it you can draw similar 4 such cells. So, and all these 8 cells, then 4 at the top and 4 at this layer, is sharing this particular point. That means this point is shared by 8 different cells. So what is the contribution of this point in this cell only? That is nothing but 1/8 part of the point is actually shared in this cell, because this point is actually shared in 8 cells. So the contribution in this particular cell is 1/8. Now how many corners are there? In a particular cell, you know, there are 8 corners. So multiplied by 8. So this is what is the total number of, effective number of points within a primitive cell. So that is equal to 1. So that is why you can see in case of a primitive cell, you can see that the contribution or the effective number of points or effective number of lattice point within a cell is 1. Now coming to the body centered cell, body centered unit cell. In case of a body centered unit cell, everything is exactly same like corner points, and for the corner points it is effectively 1 lattice point, exact calculation like this, 8 into 1/8, and along with that one center at one is at the body center of the BCC, body centered. Here you can see, here there is 1 point, so that is 1 point plus remaining 8 corners. So 8 corners, one contribution is 1/8 multiplied by 8, so it is basically 2. So total 2 number of points we can call is effectively lattice point, effectively there within the body centered unit cell. Now coming to the face centered unit cell. In case of a face centered unit cell, you see that there are again corners. So in the corners the contribution is 8 into 1/8, that means 1. And how many faces are there? First of all, let us consider this particular face center, which is at the top face, and how many cells actually sharing this point. You see, you can think of another cell exactly top of it. You can consider another cell exactly top of it, and once this cell is exactly top of it, no other cell will get access to this point. That means this cell, this point is shared between these 2 cells only. So one face centered point in the face centered is actually shared in 2 cells. So each contribution is basically half. Okay, so each face centered, its contribution into a particular cell is half because it is shared by two cells. And now how many faces are there? Because in face centered, in each face there is a face center. So how many faces are there? You know that there are 6 faces, so multiplied by 6. So the contribution from the centered points, centered lattice points, is 3, and contribution from the corner points is 1. So total number of points, that effective number of lattice point within that cell is basically 4. Now coming to the end centered can be either A or can be B or can be C. What is the contribution? So it is very clear now that in case of end centered, since corner points are there, so corner points are going to contribute 8 into 1 by 8, that means 1, plus, and each face center contributes half. So half into how many such faces are there? Only opposite pair, so 2. So this will be the result. Okay, so 2 is the answer. So in this way we can at least find out the effective number of lattice points within a cell. Now coming to very important concept of Bravais space lattice. Now Bravais space lattice is conventionally the finite representation of space lattice is done using unit cells. Already we have understood that the finite representation of the space lattice is done using unit cell, which show maximum possible symmetries with the smallest size. This is very, very important, because if you take my definition without this last two argument, that the maximum possible symmetries and smallest size, then you can think of different kinds of unit cell. Even you can consider these and these. Maybe you can consider that two translational vectors, and the unit cell you may think of like this, or there are infinite possible way. But the thing is that there are restrictions in the unit cells. What are the restrictions? The restrictions are given by Bravais space lattice, where Bravais is a scientist who first given this restrictions, that the unit cell should be such that it should have the maximum possible symmetry. Definitely we do not know what is symmetry, we'll see. And it has to be smallest size with the possible symmetries. So symmetry will come first in the priority, and then the smallest size. So two things are important. One is that it is objective that the size of the unit cell should be as small as possible, but at the same time you have to keep in mind that the maximum possible symmetries are also very important. By symmetry means symmetry may be in the form of translation. So translational symmetry is basically inherent in the definition of the space lattice, because you have seen that every point having identical surroundings. So if you translate in a particular direction, you go to other point, you translate by the same direction, you will get another point. So translational symmetry is always there in the definition of the space lattice. So if it is a space lattice, definitely translational symmetry is there. So nothing to do with the translation. Next, after translation, the question is coming about the rotational symmetry. There is another kind of symmetry like reflection. Symmetry in reflection is also there, but we are not going into the detail of the reflection symmetry, but let's try to understand what we mean by the symmetry in case of rotation. So rotational symmetry means if you just consider some lattice points, like this, and let us consider this is one unit cell. Suppose you have formed this unit cell, and now if you are looking from this side, now if you rotate this lattice by, and if you see that if this distance and if this distance, if these two distances are same, let us consider this is A and this is also A, then you see that after every 90 degree rotation, after every 90-degree rotation you will see the same thing. Suppose at this location it is there. Now you rotate with respect to the central position, and if you rotate by 90-degree, it will take a form, and that will be exactly similar to now what you are looking. So 90-degree, every 90-degree you will get a symmetry. It's the same symmetry. So in a complete rotation of 360-degree, that means if after every 90-degree you are observing the same thing, that means it has a four-fold symmetry. It has a four-fold symmetry. Four-fold symmetry means at least 4 times you will observe the same thing if you rotate. That means at every 90-degree you will observe the same thing. So it is called a four-fold symmetry. Now if you consider a unit cell like this, suppose the lattice points are arranged in such a way that you make up a unit cell like this. Suppose you made an unit cell like this. Now for this, if you are looking from this end, you tell me that how many times you will observe the same thing. So it is clear that if you rotate it by after 180-degree rotation, you will get a symmetry. Not after every 90-degree you will get the symmetry. Even if these two are same, in that case also you will not be able to. If you even consider this A and A, these two are same, even in that case you do not get symmetry after every 90-degree rotation. In this case you will get symmetry after 180-degree rotation. That means it's a two-fold symmetry. It's a two-fold symmetry. Now in case of this case also you will get a two-fold symmetry if it's a rectangular. Suppose this is A and this is B. I am showing it all this in a two-dimensional space lattice, two-dimensional unit cell, so that you can understand. The same thing will be extended in real practice in the three-dimensional. So I have just trying to give you, I am just trying to give you some idea about the rotational symmetry. So this is what we mean by the symmetry, and symmetry having at a higher priority when you are forming the unit cells, and that is very important. Okay. So symmetry is a very important thing that you have to keep in mind, and the size also try to be minimized. Sometimes you will find that there is an excellent symmetry, but the size is quite a bit larger. In that case, that symmetry will be given a priority. Okay. So this is what is the idea, and based on that it has been found that all the material, all the crystal structures, all the space lattice, whatever be the form that is existing in nature, only 14 possible space lattices are there, and those falls in 7 crystal classes. Only 14 kinds of unit cells you can generate. Only 14 kinds of unit cells you can generate, and with the help of those unit cells any kind of space lattice can be represented. Because how you have got these 14 possible space lattices? From the basic idea of the maximum possible symmetry and smallest size. This is what is the background. That is why you have considered this. You may argue that okay, some other form of unit cells we can form, but you will find that some smaller, larger symmetry or the smaller size existing only already, so that the higher one is not required. Okay, maybe higher size is not required, smaller size is okay. So this is what is the idea. Now you see that what are these 14 different space lattice, or these 14 different unit cells. So here you can see the first one is here you can see it is the cubic crystal class. I have told you that there are 7 crystal classes. So first one is indicating the cubic crystal class, and in cubic crystal class you can see cube means you know that A, B and C. These are called the lattice parameters. These are called the lattice parameters. So how many lattice parameters are there total? To completely define a unit cell, you have to specify what? A, B, C, alpha, beta and gamma. So how many lattice parameters are there total? Total 6 lattice parameters are there. So if you define the 6 lattice parameters, then completely a lattice unit cell will be defined. So in case of cubic structure, the restriction is that A, B, C has to be same. That particular crystal class, along with that alpha, beta, gamma will be same, and that is equal to 90 degree. Okay, so if this condition satisfies, then that particular crystal class is called cubic crystal class. That means where A, B, C is same and alpha, beta, gamma are all same, and that is equal to 90 degree. So in case of cubic crystal class, how many parameters you have to mention? In case of a cubic crystal class, in general, maybe this 6, but in case of a cubic crystal class, only parameter that you have to mention is A. Because alpha, beta, gamma you know, and that is 90 degree. A, B, C are same. So only one lattice parameter you have to mention to completely define that particular unit cell. Okay, so only one lattice parameter is required to define cubic crystal class, cubic unit cell. Now cubic unit cell again can be of 3 kinds. 3 kinds of cubic unit cells are possible. Those can be primitive. Primitives are also called simple, body centered and face centered. So cubic crystal class can have primitive, body centered and face centered. But you can see that end centered cubic crystal cubic unit cell is not possible. The answer that why it is not possible, why end centered cubic is not possible, because end centered cubic, if you try to form, you will find that some larger symmetry already existing either in a primitive or a body centered or a face centered, so that you do not need that end centered, and that is why by these 3 you can express any kind of cubic space lattice. Okay, so these 3 kind of unit cells are possible in case of a cubic crystal class. Okay, so this is the first crystal class. So we have seen crystal class 1, and how many different unit cells we have seen? 3. Now coming to the second crystal class, which is tetragonal crystal class. Now tetragonal means A and B, out of these 3 space lattice, if you remember, A and B will be same. A and B will be the same. This is what is the restriction. And alpha, beta, gamma again is given and equal to 90 degree. So in case of a tetragonal, the constraint is A equal to B and alpha, beta and gamma is equal to 90 degree. This is what is the constraint in case of tetragonal. Remember, equality is a rigid relationship. Equality is a rigid relationship. Not equal to is not a rigid relationship. That means C is independent. That means C is independent. That means C can take any value. But the definition is, for the tetragonal, A is equal to B, it has to be, and alpha, beta, gamma has to be same and equal to 90 degree. This is what is the restriction. Okay. So this is what we mean by the tetragonal crystal class. And in case of tetragonal crystal class, there are 2 types of unit cell possible. Only primitive and body centered. You see that face centered tetragonal is not possible, or end centered tetragonal is not possible. Why? Because maximum symmetry and smallest size, if you consider those, you will find that all the tetragonal crystal lattice can be expressed in primitive or body centered way, not with those. So total, how many we have seen? How many unit cells? In case of cubic crystal, we have seen 3. In case of tetragonal, we have seen 2. So total 5 unit cells we have observed, and 2 crystal class we have observed. Okay, cubic and tetragonal, 2 crystal class we have observed, and total 5 unit cells we have observed. Finally, we know that total there will be 14 unit cells and there will be 7 crystal class. Okay, next go to the next crystal class. Next crystal class is orthorhombic crystal class. Orthorhombic crystal class, again if you see that A alpha beta gamma is same and is equal to 90 degree. That means all the angles are 90 degree and there is no restriction in ABC. The only restriction is alpha equal to beta equal to gamma. This is what is called equal to 90 degree. This is only the constraint in case of orthogonal, and there is no restriction in sides. In case of sides, there is no restriction. The definition of orthorhombic is alpha beta gamma is 90 degree. That's all. You can take any value of ABC, no problem. Okay. So now you see that in case of orthorhombic, you will find all these kinds of unit cells like primitive, body centered, face centered, and end centered. So all these kinds of unit cells are possible in case of orthorhombic. So how many unit cells you have observed till now? So previously it was 5, now we can see another 4, so total 9, and we have observed 3 crystal classes. Okay. Now coming to the 4th crystal class, which is monoclinic crystal class. Now for the monoclinic crystal class, what about the lattice parameters? In the lattice parameters you can see that alpha equal to gamma equal to 90 degree. This is what is the restriction. It is given. No restriction about their sides. The sides can take any value. ABC can be any value. No restrictions. And beta also can take any value. No restriction. Okay. So this is what is the meaning of the monoclinic crystal. Now monoclinic can be either primitive or it can be end centered. So here now we can see 2 more. So 9 plus 2. So we have seen 11 unit cells and 4 crystal class. So now at this point, if I ask you that how many lattice parameters you have to define in case of a monoclinic crystal, you have to define A, you have to define B, you have to define C, and you have to define beta. Okay, so you have to define 4 lattice parameters for the monoclinic. For the triclinic, if you observe that there is no restriction in case of a triclinic, no restrictions in size, no restrictions in angles. So this is what is the triclinic. Okay, no restrictions, and only it has a primitive. There is no other kinds of unit cells. So 11 plus 1, we have observed 12, and 5 crystal class we have covered. If you go through these videos, after that you will find here the different kinds of compounds, those having the different kinds of crystals, those having this kind of crystal structure are also being noted. Now here you can see in case of a hexagonal crystal class, the restriction here you can see that A equal to B. This is what is the restriction. There is no restriction with the C, and alpha, beta, gamma all are defined. Alpha, beta must be 90 degree and gamma must be equal to 120 degree. Okay. So if you observe this particular unit cell, you can easily relate your A, B and C. But this is called hexagonal because you can see that 3 such unit cells will form a hexagonal structure, and for the hexagonal it is used, that is why the name hexagonal. Okay. Otherwise the thing is exactly similar. So A equal to B, this is what is the restriction here. So how many you have to define? How many lattice parameters are there in a hexagonal crystal? The lattice parameters are A and C. These 2 are the lattice parameters that you have to mention. Now coming to the rhombohedral, in case of a rhombohedral, the restriction you can see that ABC has to be same. Okay, and you can see that here restriction is alpha equal to beta equal to gamma. This is what is the another restriction. alpha, beta, gamma has to be same. Okay, so that means in case of a rhombohedral, basically how many lattice parameters you have to specify? You have to specify A and alpha. So there are only two things that you have to specify for the rhombohedral. So we have covered all these 14 different unit cells and 7 different crystal classes. Now one question, if you see that an analysis of a crystal gave the following unit cell parameters. So this is a problem. I will tell you to solve this problem. It is very simple, that if A and B are equal and equal to 12 angstrom, and if C is 12.1 angstrom, and if alpha, beta, gamma are all same and equal to 90 degree, then options are there. What kind of unit cell is this? Or rather, in what kind of crystal class it will fall? In what kind of crystal class? It will be tetrahedral, option A, B is orthorhombic, C is triclinic, and D is any one of the options may be correct. So here I have also listed the different crystal systems and their relationships. So just you go through this one and note down in your copy your answer, and after counting 10 I will start discussing the answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now here the answer will be D. Let us see why. So here it is clear that A equal to B in this crystal class, that we can see, and alpha equal to beta equal to 90 degree, that is another restriction. Now where this alpha equal to beta equal to 90 degree is there, here you can see alpha equal to beta equal to 90 degree, but here A, B, C are equal, so it cannot be cubic. Now coming to the rhombohedral, here alpha, beta, gamma are equal. Alpha, beta and gamma, they are equal, and A, B, C are equal. So since A, B, C are equal, so that is why rhombohedral cannot be the case. Now coming to the tetrahedral, you see in case of a tetrahedral, alpha, beta, gamma is equal to 90 degree, it is satisfying, and A equal to B, that condition is satisfying. So that is why it can be tetrahedral. So this can be one of the option. Now coming to the other options like orthorhombic, let us go to the orthorhombic directly and see what is the condition. In case of orthorhombic, basically alpha equal to beta equal to gamma, and that is equal to 90 degree, which is the case here. And in case of orthorhombic, you can see there is no constraint. There is no constraint among A, B, C. I have already told you that equality is the constraint. Inequality, that means there is no constraint. That means ABC can have any value. ABC can have any value. It might be that A and B are equal. Okay. So here we can tell it can be orthorhombic also, because there is no constraint in ABC. Maybe A, B and C are like this. Okay. So we cannot tell definitely that it would be tetrahedral. It can be orthorhombic also. Now coming to the triclinic, if you go to the triclinic, you see that alpha is not equal to beta, is not equal to gamma, is not equal to 90 degree. Okay. So if this is the case, then definitely triclinic will not be there. So answer should not be any one of them, because triclinic cannot be the case, because here it is not equal to 90 degree, that is there. Okay, triclinic can be the case, because triclinic can be the case because triclinic can be the case because that there is no restriction in alpha, beta and gamma. Since not equal to is not a restriction, equality is the restriction. Not equal to means they are independent. Alpha, beta, gamma are independent. They can take any value. Okay, it is the meaning of not equal to. Not equal to is not a rigid relationship. Equality is a rigid relationship. Not equal to means they are independent. They can take any value. So alpha, beta, gamma are independent and they can take any value. That is why they can also take 90. Okay, they're not necessarily 90. Not equal to is not a rigid relationship. Always that you remember. Okay, when I am telling that A is not equal to B, that does not mean that means basically A and B are independent. It is not a constraint. When I am telling A equal to B, this is a rigid relationship. It has to be. A is equal to B. Okay, but when I am telling A not equal to B, that means A and B are independent. They can have any values. This is what is the meaning here in all these crystal systems that has been explained. So it is very important to understand what is the meaning of equality and non-equality. So it can be triclinic also, because in case of a triclinic, A, B, C are also independent. So it is possible that they will take these values 12, 12 and 12.1. Okay, that is why orthorhombic and triclinics are also the correct answer, and any one of the options may be correct. So the D is the correct option for this question. Now coming to the crystal structure, you see that lattice plus, okay, I think we should stop here and the next class will continue from here. Okay, so wait.